After 1 year of using the Mini 3 Pro, is this the only drone you need to buy? Today we are looking at the Mini 3 Pro after 1 year of ownership and use. We picked up this drone a year ago and it's been an awesome drone in that time. But the question is it good enough for professional use? Have we enjoyed using it? And do we regret going for it instead of going for a more expensive, larger drone? Now, I've done plenty of videos on this channel talking about the Mini 3 Pro, so make sure you check them out if you want to look about all the firmware updates it's had over the time, as well as how I best color grade it, and many other videos that I've done. Now, one of the reasons that's made this drone so special in the past year is actually the firmware updates it has received. It's been improved upon so much since it first came out. Don't get me wrong, when it first came out, it was still impressive. It was an impressive drone for the price and the size, and there was no doubt about that. However, with the firmware updates, it's just sort of cemented its position as a drone that can truly be used for professional use. You know, including things like 10-bit color in here, which is incredible for such a cheap, affordable drone. In fact, it might be one of the most affordable cameras full stop that actually has 10-bit color built into it. Adding the ability to control the sharpness and noise reduction was also a big surprise. I can't believe that it was an update that DJI actually provided. And it has made a big difference to the image quality that the Mini 3 Pro can produce. Certainly when the Mini 3 Pro first came out and we first flew it, I was really impressed with the image quality that the drone could produce for its size, but also I recognised that it was a bit over sharpened and the noise reduction was a little bit too strong. And certainly, although it was good, it wasn't as good as more expensive drones that are out there, and you would perhaps think twice about using it on a professional job because of that. Certainly for a quick shot, and if that's your only option because of size or weight limitations, then it was absolutely fine. But it certainly wouldn't be your first pick for a drone. However, with those updates, it really did improve the image quality. This for me is what really turned this drone into a professional option. And it is the big turning point from going from a high-end hobbyist drone to actually a really practical little professional drone. The biggest reason, other than the price, you would pick up the Mini 3 Pro, of course, is the fact that it's only 250 grams, which means it meets all the regulations for flying in many more locations, especially here in the UK as well as in Europe. There's no point having an amazing drone if you're just not allowed to fly it anywhere, and that is one of the big advantages of the Mini 3 Pro. Something you can use almost like a lens in your kit bag. You just get it out, perhaps just do one shot with it, rather than needing to plan an entire shoot around it. Although its size is awesome for the regulations and for carrying it with you when you're going to different locations, it does have one big downside, and that is it does get affected by wind quite badly. Not in terms of flying. Actually, when it comes to flying, it seems to handle it pretty well. I took this drone to Greece, where we were on a very windy island, and despite it looked like it was going to be blown away, it seemed to hold up pretty strong, and actually the shots still looked pretty smooth when flying with this drone. However, what I did notice is that the battery life does get affected quite severely by the wind. Obviously, it's working extra hard to kind of counteract that wind and trying to stay stable, and that's what's going on there. You know, it's using a lot more battery as the motors are working a lot harder, so it does mean you're seeing a big reduction in battery life compared to what you'd notice on a larger drone. The other frustration with this drone is the fact it doesn't have an aperture on the lens. You wouldn't think this is a massive deal. After all, you can put ND filters on the front, you can adjust the shutter if you really have to, and that's actually not that big of a deal, despite what some people say on the internet. But it is still frustrating. Just make those fine adjustments. Having an aperture just makes life so much easier. You have to stop down just by a few stops just to make sure you get the light just right as clouds change in the sky, things like that. You don't have to be landing and changing your ND filter all the time. Certainly if there is a Mini 4 Pro, that is the one thing that I'd like to see added to the drone, just to give you a little bit more control and flexibility. Now, I did mention how great the image quality is, and it is excellent. It's still far beyond what a drone of this size should be able to produce. That said, I do find the colors can be a little bit limited. Yes, it is 10-bit, but they're still not quite there compared to the cameras that have the Hasselblad color science in there. I think that definitely does make a difference to the image quality that the Mavic series can produce. I definitely think it does help. Even though on paper it shouldn't make that much of a difference, the fact that you've got 10-bit. It is just a bit harder to work with, I find, with the Mini 3 Pro. Also, the lack of a log profile is frustrating. It really does limit the dynamic range. I'd say that is the one big limiting factor when it comes to the image that you get out of this Mini 3 Pro. If the sky is too bright, you have to sacrifice it, or you have to try and avoid looking at it instead, or you have to make the image in the shadows just far too dark. You really can't capture both. It's always been limited on most drones, to be fair, but it certainly feels that the limitation here isn't what the drone is capable of capturing, but the fact that it doesn't actually have the option of shooting a log profile, even if it's just D-Log-M. After all, we've seen that on the same sensor on the Mavic 3 Pro's zoom lens. That does have D-Log-M, so arguably there's no reason why this one couldn't handle D-Log-M as well, but I guess they just want to save something for the Mavic series. My only other real gripe with the Mini 3 Pro is the screen on the controller. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the controller, it's very nice to use, the battery life is really impressive on it, it's just quick to set up and much nicer than having to connect up your phone, which is just a pain to use. But the one issue I do have with the remote control is the fact the screen has a slight blue tint. I don't know if this is the same for everyone's controllers. Maybe my one just has a bit more of a blue tint compared to other people's, but I certainly noticed that it's just frustrating. It just gives you that lack of confidence of the image you're getting. It's always nice, I think, having a slightly warmer image on your screen, even if that isn't correct, just because it looks nice and you kind of feel like, oh yeah, I'm really getting this amazing sunset right now. Whereas because it has quite a cool looking screen, it just makes everything feel a bit cold and harsh and not quite as good as actually what you're capturing. When you get home and you look on your computer and you start color grading and you're suddenly like, whoa, this looks amazing. But sometimes when you're looking at the screen, it just doesn't look that impressive. The sharpness on the screen is awesome. It's nice and clear and easy to see, although saying that, it isn't as bright as I'd like it to be. I know they've got a more pro version of this controller, and that's what they want you to go out and buy if you want the full ultra bright daylight viewable screen. It is viewable in daylight, it's okay, it gets you by, it's better than a lot of phones out there. Obviously it's not going to dim, which is great as well compared to a phone. However, I do find I just want it to be a bit brighter. In sunny conditions, it's not bright enough. In cloudy conditions, it's okay, but it would just be nice if it just had a bit more punch behind it so you could really see the image clearly. So who is this drone good enough for? It's an excellent drone, and after a year, I have enjoyed using it on many shoots. However, there are some limitations that you do need to be aware of. I do think this is a pro drone, no doubt about it. But isn't it just a name they put on the drone to make it sound more exciting? It really is a pro drone and can be used for professional use. I think it's a great drone if you're an occasional drone flyer, a bit like us actually, where, especially on our UK jobs, we don't do a huge amount of drone flying and a lot of filmmaking. Most of our corporate work doesn't involve a huge amount of drones, but sometimes we need one. Sometimes that would just be that one shot, an opening shot perhaps of a business or a certain shot that a client needs, and then suddenly the Mini 3 Pro makes a lot of sense in that scenario. Having just this in the bag or just available with us, because it's so small and because it can just be pretty much flown anywhere, is a really big bonus addition to our kit. So certainly, I think anyone who is a corporate filmmaker, this is the drone to go for. That said, even if you are a full-time drone pilot, I still think this is one that's worth picking up. Yes, you may have already a Mavic 3 Pro, and you also probably have Inspires and things like that. But I think there are certain occasions where this would just make a lot of sense, even if it's just for backup. Because the quality is so good, I've been impressed by it so much that I think you could quite confidently have this as a backup option if anything were to happen to your more expensive drones on a shoot. After all, it's better to have something there as a backup rather than having no secondary option whatsoever in a worst case scenario on a big shoot. It'll also get you into angles and positions that the other drones just wouldn't be able to get you. As I mentioned, you can fly a lot closer to people, but also it just means it's a lot quieter and a lot nicer to fly, so perhaps you don't want to just cause so much disruption, for example. That's when perhaps the Mini 3 Pro would be a better option than a much better quality drone like an Inspire or even a Mavic 3. Finally, there's of course the hobbyist, and which is probably what DJI was really aiming for this drone to go for. After all, this seems like the perfect drone for them, and it's in a reasonable price bracket. What I would say to any hobbyists out there that are considering to buy this drone, go for it. It's the right drone for you. I would say it's the top end drone that you should be buying. Don't go out and spend any more money if you're just planning on flying a drone for fun. it's not really worth the extra money going for the more expensive drones, I would say. This will do everything a hobbyist would ever really want to do on it. The quality is excellent. You'll never really, I think, hit the limitations that this drone can provide. You only need to go really for those more expensive drones if you are making money from it. Otherwise, you're going to have a great time with this one. You'll be able to fly in many more places, and it's just so much more convenient and enjoyable to fly than a larger drone. So there you go, that is my opinions of the Mini 3 Pro after 1 year of usage. It has been an awesome drone. We've used it absolutely everywhere, and we will continue to use it into the future. Every drone, of course, has its target market and certain use cases, but I really think this is probably the one drone that most people can buy and they will just be extremely happy with it. They won't feel regret about spending too much money on it or regret that they didn't spend enough. They'll just think, yep, you know what, this does exactly what it says on the tin and then some. And I think that's the best you could really ask for out of a drone in this price bracket. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure you like and subscribe, as it massively helps me out. And also, why not check out the other videos I've done talking about the Mini 3 Pro. I've done plenty of videos out there, so make sure you check out all of those. See you next time. Goodbye.